Welcome back to another edition of Ringside Chats. And today I'm joined by a great guest. This man is a former Reality of Wrestling and MPX Tag Team Champion. He's a former Sabotage War of the Genders Champion, former Loko Champion. And you might have heard his name a lot on other episodes of our podcast because he's not just a wrestler. He is the promoter and booker of New Texas Pro Wrestling and Texas Contender Series, none other than the Sheriff Kiefer Bartek.
I didn't think you would remember. I didn't think would do your research. I was going to correct you. I was going to come correct. Inspire AD Twin Jack Dragon Champion as well. I'm excited to be here, man.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you kind of hold too many championships, so I didn't think I could mention them all.
Not enough, I'd say.
More in the future. More in the future.
Yes.
Yeah, but I really appreciate you joining us here today. This has been something I've been really excited about because when I first got into indie wrestling, you're one of the first names I came across. Like it's, I started watching New Texas, started watching Raw, and you're everywhere,
I've definitely been probably in every I think every major promotion in the state of Texas at this point in time. Definitely have had my hand in getting people places and helping out in pretty much everywhere as well. So I'm as entrenched in Texas wrestling scene as probably anybody else.
Definitely. Your name is always coming up from other people. They're like, oh yeah, Kiefer Bartek's my trainer. Oh, he got me the spot here. Oh, have you heard of Kiefer Bartek? I'm like, yeah. But the first thing that came to my mind when we scheduled this interview is that when you started training to be a wrestler, did you ever see yourself being a promoter and a booker of an organization?
Absolutely not, man. I think when I first got into wrestling in 2014 down there at Row, I was all in as far as a wrestler. I wanted to become the best possible professional wrestler that I could be. I was there 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. I used to work an overnight job as a security guard at a apartment complex, making $10 an hour when I first moved down here to Houston. So it was all. I didn't have a social life. I didn't have any. I was just like, I'm gonna learn as much as about professional wrestling as I humanly could possibly learn, and that's what I did, man. The first few years I was down here in Houston. There's a lot of great people that I learned from, and I feel like you kind of said it there. I'm in a good position to continue to pass a lot of things that I've learned down to people that I've crossed paths with across the state.
Yeah, you were super eager to get your hands in the business. When did you know you wanted to be a professional wrestler?
Man, I think it's one of those things where when you're a kid and you're like a big fan of pro wrestling, a lot of the kids kind of grow out of being like a wrestling fan, you know what I'm saying? And I never did. And there was a time in my early 20s when I lost a ton of weight. And I was like, man, it's like, if I really want to give this a chance, I gotta do it now. I looked up reputable schools across the nation. I was actually living in Lubbock, Texas at the time. So I drove 9 hours down here at one of my good friends, Steven. I rented a room from him for the first couple of years I was here. And that's all it's really. It's one of those things where I didn't ever think it was a realistic possibility. But when I lost all that weight, and then it just kind of, I said, yeah, you know what, this could be it.
And when you started looking up training, like schools for wrestling, you obviously landed at Reality of Wrestling.
Yeah.
Was that the only choice for you? Was that like, this is the place I gotta go?
No, I definitely sent out filler emails to several different places that that I was interested in. One that comes to mind is like Chikara. It's no longer around. Obviously, the trainer there ended up being a scumbag or whatever. But I mean, I put my feelers out there for sure. But I was 24 when I started, so I knew that I didn't have a ton of time as far as like being in the ring, and so I knew that I had to go to a reputable school that got me in the room with people who knew what they were doing.
What was it like getting your foot in the door at Row?
It was cool, man. I enjoyed my time down there at Row. The Lockharts helped me out a lot when I was there. Eric still wrestles down there. Andrew. I'm not sure if he's wrestling at this point in time, but I think he wants to come back. And it it was a good time, man. Again, there's a lot of good people that I learned from down there. The Lockharts come to mind. Brian Davidson's, Gino Medina's, JJ Blake. Yeah, I mean, an enjoyable time. You know, there's a few of us that kind of came in together. Um, Myself, Cam Cole, Hion, we all kind of came at the same time. Ninja Mac, I always forget about Ninja Mac. We all came at school about the same time period. So, um, yeah, you had good people that you knew. I mean, you never know where someone's going to end up in this business. This is so crazy, but you go in there with hungry people every single time. You're around like-minded people who want to be successful like you. It makes a world of difference. You know, it makes the experience. How do I say this? It just makes everything. You have a bunch of like-minded people with the same goal that want to make this a career, and it motivates you to become the best possible version of yourself that you can be every time out as well, you know?
And one of those main names you mentioned was Cam Cole, and you guys end up being the Cool, you know.
Yeah.
And eventually the Cool would include Will Allday as well and Rachel Rose.
Well, Will won't say that he was ever part of the Cool, but you know, he's an honorary member of the Cool, is what we always say.
when I watch back like the road stuff, and I'm just like, he's part of the Cool.
We'll just say he was, all right.
Yeah, we'll say the honorary Cool.
Yes.
And you and Cam ended up tagging a lot, even recently. You guys still tag. You know, it's I think one of the longest tag teams in Texas history.
Yeah, man. I can't even remember the first time we tagged. It was probably somewhere in 2015 or 2016, and we've sporadically tagged for the last however long that is, 7 years, something like that. So
how'd that connection come in? Like, did you guys randomly get thrown together at one point, or did you guys talk about it?
No, I mean, like I said, we both came at the school at the same time. We were living together for a little bit, and yeah, I mean, we both just wanted to be successful, and we wanted our foot in the door any way we could at reality wrestling. So we pitched the idea to Kevin, and we said, "Hey, we want to be a team." We think about, initially the idea of the Cool was that there's these two hipsters who, who we were two young guys at the time, and we were usually babyface there at reality wrestling. But a lot of times, other places we were not good guys because people hate hipsters in Texas. I don't know if hipster is even the correct terminology nowadays, but whatever. 7 years ago, it was very, we hate hipsters and stuff. So it was a good concept, and like I said, me and Cam both wanted to be successful, wanted to be successful, and it just clicked. We clicked as friends, and our love for sports as well. It's easy for us to communicate and things like that. And we travel the roads, probably to every major city, tagging and stuff like that.
And did you guys feel like you clicked naturally? You guys obviously clicked outside of wrestling, right?
Yes.
But in the ring, do you think you were automatically just, oh, this is a great team?
Maybe a little. It took a little bit of time to get some timing and things like that, but eventually, I think we figured a lot out. And it's, again, when you train with somebody 5 days a week, and you're there with them all the time, and you're there on the weekends traveling and stuff like that, you really just figure out timing, and at this part, when he's doing this, I should be doing this and all that stuff. So yeah, man, it clicked from the beginning.
And the Cool is still running shop today. And how would you feel like the Cool from 2014 2015 kind of differs from the Cool now?
Well, we're both veterans now. We've both been around the game for almost a decade, so we'd probably be a little bit more savvy in our approach. Cam's probably not going to be diving off any kind of steel cages or anything like that now, although he might. And we would go about things a little bit differently, and we'd get the job done a little bit differently as well. So.
And like I said before, eventually Rachel Rose would come into the picture. Will Allday sometimes. How did that happen? How did you decide the Cool's expanding?
Well, Rachel Rose came down at Rogue. I don't even know when it was. Whatever the year it was, 2016, 2017. She was a referee down there for a bit, and I was like, hey, do you want to be like a wrestler, or do you want to, do this, do the referee thing? And she was like, I want to be a wrestler. I want to try to, I want to try to do this for real. So I was like, all right, cool. I'm working these other places. Heavy Metal Wrestling was one of them that I was working at. I was doing the man bun gimmick, the Star Tech gimmick. So she came in initially as my hairdresser with the man bun, and it just kind of all rolled from there. I mean, she started managing Cam at Inspire, and then I came over to Inspire as more of a full-time role. And so we all just kind of, all right, this is the cool, you got the tag, you got Rachel Rose, and then eventually Will joined us at Inspire as well. So we had all four of us right before the pandemic, man. We were firing on all cylinders. We were feuding with Thunder Rosa. It was going to be, yeah, it was about to be some really cool stuff. And, unfortunately, the pandemic kind of changed a lot of things, but it was a good experience, man. We all had good chemistry. There were some promos there with Dan the Man floating out on the internet somewhere that were really funny and some of my favorite stuff that I've ever done.
I recently went to an Inspire AD show, and my very first one, I went up to Austin for it, and Rachel Rose is killing it over there. Like,
Yeah,
she's a star. Like,
main event champion,
Yeah.
winning the main event. It's a pretty big deal,
It's a huge deal, and she's everywhere right now. I can definitely see someone like her, a big company just snatching her up. Same with
Yeah.
High-End.
She's definitely on the precipice of being picked up, and she's been being looked at for a couple of years. So, like I said, she's right on that cusp of having an opportunity.
Yeah, and Will Allday, Cam Cole were also there, and it feels like in Raw right now. Will Allday and Cam Cole are back together. Man, it's like Cool 2.0 going on.
I think you should just call them that from now on. The Cool 2.0.
I definitely will. Every time I speak to those guys, it's Cool 2.0.
Just tell them, hey, Cool 2.0. Just yell it at them.
Every show, it'll happen. Yeah, they should get you and Rachel in on that.
Let's do it.
Yeah, definitely. I want to know.
Okay.
So you've been.
This is a very serious. You just kind of just changed. I want to know.
Oh,
you have to know.
Oh no, no. It's not like that. It was like formulating, because I'll be honest with you. For these interviews, I don't like to prep pretty much at all. I want to go in and just feel the conversation.
You gotta feel in the ring,
Yeah, exactly.
Don't call spots in the back. All right, we're gonna go out there. We're gonna call it in the ring. All right.
Oh no, then let's talk about that. I've talked to some wrestlers, and some of them, like Moonshine Mantell, Ryan Davidson, they only want to call it in the ring. But then I also talked to some wrestlers like Just Nick and Prince Alexander, some of the newer wrestlers, and they feel that, since they're on the newer side, they want to call it mostly in the back, talk to each other, plan it out, and then go out there. And they feel like the communication aspect doesn't really happen as much out in the ring. When you were wrestling, how did you come up? Did you feel out that talking process in the ring, or when you were newer, did you have to kind of plan it out like most wrestlers are doing nowadays?
When you're new, it's probably best to call a lot of the stuff in the back. You're just thinking about a lot of different other things when you first start out. You're not thinking about the things that you probably should be when you first start wrestling. You're thinking about the spots. You're thinking about, I don't want to mess up. There's a lot of things that your mind is your cognitive ability is thinking when you first start. As time goes on, you kind of understand that things happen when you wrestle. But ultimately, you're there to entertain. You're there to, entertain the crowd, put on the best showing that you possibly can be put on. And not everyone. I enjoy calling stuff in the ring. I've called entire matches in the ring. With people like AJ Gray and Lowrider and others, where it's just that's what they want to do. I'm pretty good at it as well. So it's I enjoy it just because you're letting the crowd and the moments dictate what you do, as opposed to calling everything in the back. And if the crowd's not into this and you've already got it called in the back and you're like, well, this is the next spot we're going to go to, then you're going to just run through a whole bunch of stuff that a lot of people aren't going to care about. If you get to walk and talk and call stuff in the ring, you can kind of feel what's working and what's not working. And that takes time. That takes a long time to figure out what works and what doesn't work when you're wrestling in the ring. And so I can do either way. Some people like to call it. Some people like to, just work in the ring. I think a good mix of both is probably what's best. make sure that the big spots and moments are called in the back, and then kind of fill in the rest as you're filling it out there. That's my opinion on it. I think more of the new generation is kind of leaning towards calling everything in the ring. It's a very spot heavy generation. They like to see what guys in AEW and stuff are doing, which is I'm not like an old school guy that's like, oh, we too many spots or whatever. But it just, you have to understand that if you're going to try to do stuff like those guys, you got to be able to hold your own as far as making the spots look as tremendous as they do.
I will say that growing up watching wrestling, and even sometimes now, I was be like those old school dudes who's like, slow it down a little bit. But then when I started attending indie shows, I
Yeah.
started like not caring about that stuff. I was like, this is freaking awesome. Just let go and start
Yeah.
caring about all that. I was like, just enjoy the moment, because like pacing is very important, but there's a time and a place with everything. Not everything has to be a technical slow match. Um, and that's funny. I was gonna ask you, how do you feel like wrestling has changed from when you entered the business to now, and now you're working more behind the scenes too? How do you feel like your view of wrestling has changed?
Um, I kind of came into pro wrestling probably more educated than most people. I definitely did my research. I listened to the podcast, and obviously, you can listen to all that stuff, and you're still not going to learn a lot of what you learn in wrestling school and stuff like that. There's a lot of things that I just didn't think about, overlooked when I would, when I came into wrestling or whatever, that I happily learned and that I've happily, soaked up and, figured out over the time. Um, I think I'm probably more entrenched now, more so on a booker side, like booking the shows out, um, promoting the shows and things like that. I try when I sit down and watch like WWE pay-per-views or PLEs as they like to call them nowadays. Maybe that's the thing. It's the verbiage has changed so much over time. Now it's PLEs. No, it's I like to watch it as a fan, from a fan's perspective, and I like to see what they're doing. I don't like to be hypercritical about a lot of stuff that's not anything to do with me. I like to try to sit back and enjoy it from a fan's as a fan. And like I said, just for me, I don't know if a ton has changed for me over the time. I still kind of view wrestling the same way. It's probably a little bit harder than I expected it to be. But other than that, I still I still have the ability to turn off the filter when I want to be a fan, and turn it on when I need to be like a promoter, a booker, or a wrestler, or whatever the case may be.
Oh, that's awesome. And kind of going back to the last question, we were talking about calling in the ring versus planning ahead. When I spoke with Max Castellanos, he was mentioning that him and Moonshine Mantel had such an amazing connection that they would not see each other before the match. They would just go in the ring and kind of barely talk, and they'd put on
Yeah.
amazing matches. Did you feel like you had an opponent that you had a really amazing connection with, that when you go on the ring, sparks will fly?
Man, that's a good question. We JJ Blake was always a good foil of mine. Me and Sam Stackhouse had a lot of good things at Loko Wrestling when we started the Riot and everything. Those are the two that really come to mind. Both more from a both. They like to talk and they like to feel things out as well. And Sam has been doing, both those guys have been doing it for well over a decade. And when you're in the ring with an opponent who knows what they're doing and knows what they want to do, and then what you're doing and what you want to do, and you guys work together, that's really when the magic happens. And you're trusting the other person that when when they take over, they're going to be able to do their part, and it's going to get get the match to the next level. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely. And mentioning JJ Blake, you guys now work together to train wrestlers as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
You, JJ, and Mr. Bulldog Senior, of course.
Yeah.
Did you also ever see yourself training wrestlers? Like, not only did you get to wrestle, And not only are you promoting it and booking it, you're also training wrestlers too.
No, again, when I got into the business, I just wanted to be the best wrestler that I could possibly be. You know what I'm saying? And there's a thing in jiu-jitsu that they would say that you want to get good enough at something to be able to teach somebody else. So that's at some point I felt that way as well, that I wanted to be good enough at pro wrestling that I would be able to teach the next generation, about the things that I've learned and things that were useful to me when I was coming through the system and stuff like that. And I taught a little bit there at Row, and then I kind of didn't really teach a whole lot. I kind of stepped away to do more of the promoting and booking thing. And then when I moved back here to Houston, that's kind of when I started to help JJ and Bulldog with their training and stuff like that. And again, I bring a different perspective than those two. Those two have been wrestling, Bulldog for over 20 years, Blake for over 12 years, whatever the case may be. I'm about to be at 10 years in the business, but I've ran a successful promotion for the last 5 years. So you have somebody that's like, I'm a promoter. I speak to promoters all the time. I speak to different bookers across the state, things like that. So I'm able to add a perspective to them that JJ and Bulldog aren't necessarily able to provide to them, because I've dealt with hundreds of talent. I've dealt with dozens of promoters. Something like the Texas Indie Showcase, where we're bringing the promoters in there, get to run their own matches at the show. I get them carte blanche to run what matches they want to run. But again, it's all part of the common synergy for bettering the state and putting on shows where we can draw as many people as we can into the building to highlight the guys that we have in the state.
So when you're training, because you do have that promoter background, do you feel like you're teaching these young men and women how to more make themselves like known in the business, how to make themselves more marketable, rather than like JJ and Bulldog Senior more working more fundamentals?
Yeah, I try to give them from a promoter's perspective. You want to try to be as undeniable as you possibly can be as a talent, right? You don't want to go somewhere and be like, "Oh, I love that kid, but he's never on social media," or "I love that kid, he's awesome, but look at his gear," or there's a million things that I've heard from a million promoters about, "Oh, I love this kid, but," or "I like this person, but," and I have to be the person to tell these kids like, "Hey, these are the buts that you have about yourself," just trying to be honest with them, not in any kind of malicious intent, because I want everyone to be as successful and to achieve their dreams. I want to try to help people get to where they want to get to in this business. That's my biggest goal at this point in time. So it's just providing, again, if I was this promoter, in Austin or something, and I saw you for the first time and I knew nothing about you, what would I say that said you could improve on, or that you could better yourself to become a better wrestler? A lot of that is marketing. Like you said, it's a lot of, we live in a day and age now where you get to market yourself better than you ever have before in the past. Even when I first started at Row, we didn't, we had smartphones and things like that, but they weren't near as good as they are now. And, we had to rely on footage and stuff from, Row and Kevin and them. So now you have, like, these cameras can film almost better than the cameras that we had at Ringside. You understand what I'm saying? So you can create your own marketing videos, your own photographs and content for yourself that you've never ever been able to in the history of this world. So it's a lot. Again, it's just teaching them the tips and tricks that I've learned. Even before I became a promoter, I'm very astute at social media. So again, it's just passing on what I know and trying to push these kids to be the best that they can be. And it's not just social media. Gym, diet, all that stuff. That if you want to make it to the next level, you want to sign a contract, you want to go to Japan. These are the things you have to do.
And in your time training these students, has there been a person that you saw that like, oh man, they're pretty undeniable from the get go, or like they're like a 5-tool player? Has there been a student like that for you?
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't say so.
I
There's
like
been a
that. That's
lot.
good.
There's been a lot. There's a lot of. there's a lot. I've dealt with a lot of people over the years, like I said, 10 plus years and things like that. Some people look great, not really great in the ring. Some people great at social media, not really good at training or, focusing on the small things. Like I said, I don't think I've ever met anybody, I think maybe the best wrestler that I think I've ever come across was ACH. And he was, and again, it's not my student or anything like that. I just, on the wrestling scene, he was tremendous. He looked great. He had great gear, good on social media. When he went to NXT, he crushed it while he was there. Like I said, that when you see people like that on the indies on a regular basis, we all have things we should be striving to get better at. And everybody, it's crazy. Like somebody like Roxanne Perez, right? When I met her, she was 16, 17, I believe. Kind of took her under my wing and taught her a lot about social media, taught her a lot about, how to get booked on shows. And, when she had trouble with promoters, she would come to me and ask me about it. When she had problems with her family, in the sense of like, oh, I want to go train at Houston at Row. Can you come talk to my mom? I'd go talk to her mom. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just that someone like her, she's very good at, when you tell her something, she learned, like when you tell her a thing one time, she's going to do it every time correct after that. She wants to get better. She's always sought out the knowledge and things like that. So that's always helped her go from being pretty much a relative unknown at the time that I met her to pretty much being fast tracked to where she is now. Constantly asking people to, watch my match back, give me critiques, and she's always constantly getting better. I think that's the key ingredient for a student, right? You want to always, don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Put yourself out there. You're going to fail in certain aspects, but constantly try to improve. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to ask people to, watch your stuff and give you real critiques and things like that. And then go out and get it. Go hustle. Nothing's ever gonna come to you. You got to be the ones in the cars. You got to be the ones getting going to promotions that you never. I went to Inspire 6 times before I ever got to be on the show. So you got to go out there. You got to meet people. You got to help set up and tear down. You got to do all that stuff. There's a lot of that, and man. Like I said, the people who become successful pick up those things very quickly, and you don't ever have to tell them again. They just do it.
Yeah, that's incredible. And you talk about taking Roxy under your wing while she's in Texas. And we know where she's at now, right? Like she's become a global superstar, NXT champion, and like what? Pretty much as soon as she gets there.
Yeah.
And do you still keep in contact with her?
Yeah. When she debuted on SmackDown last year, I went there, and I met with her mom because I'd been a friend of the family for a while. And yeah, we both watched Roxanne Perez debut on SmackDown, WWE SmackDown. We both, got emotional, I'd say. And it was a very cool moment to see her path and everything like that. And I mean, it was cool, man. And we still talk to this day. If I have any questions, sometimes I ask, like, what are they doing down there in the PC? How can we bring that stuff to what we're doing, a premiere? And and I check in. I think we're gonna see her at the Great American Bash in Austin. So I think we've already confirmed we're gonna be hanging out with the family and everything. So like I said, to see her trajectory and everything is really cool. And we were just always gonna have that bond because I helped her get to where she wanted to get to, and now she's crushed it everywhere she's gone. So.
Yeah, I can't imagine. You must feel immensely proud of her, and don't be afraid to tell her about Restless when you see her at the Great American Bash.
I will. I'll bring a shirt.
Oh, okay. I can't wait to get my Texas Contender Series shirt. By the way, those look awesome.
Yes, they're gonna be cool. It should be coming any time now.
Nice. And that reminds me, I just met Trick Williams at Summer of Champions, and he said, "Yeah, let's get on the podcast." Never got back to me. But
Maybe that's like default response. Like, oh, let's get on the podcast and then go about your business. Maybe
yeah, he had me pretty convinced though, because he's like, "Oh, let's get WWE clearance." I was like, "Okay." But anyways, well, so you travel, like you mentioned, all across Texas. You've wrestled pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
You really have a skill for getting your foot in the door at a lot of these places.
Yeah.
What would you say has been your favorite promotion to wrestle for?
Ooh, I think probably Inspire. I've had a lot of good memories there. A lot of good matches. It's hard to say like one. It's hard to do like one, right? Um, and I enjoyed my time at MPX when I was MPX Tag Champions. That was a lot of fun. Being the Reality Wrestling Tag Team Champions, even if it was for a month, was a lot of fun. Heavy metal wrestling, man. I enjoyed my time in heavy metal wrestling. I heard Teflon John talk about it a little bit on your podcast that I listened to. Yeah, man, Dunbar. I'd say that's kind of where I took off more as a singles competitor, was at heavy metal wrestling. I won the heavy metal championship, which I don't believe you mentioned at the top of this podcast.
I was gonna mention it, but unfortunately they closed down, and I was trying to mention active promotions.
Yes. Well, Inspire is still around, and you didn't mention my Inspire Pro Twin Dragon Championship.
Like I said, so many championships.
No, the thing that I loved about heavy metal wrestling was that, I think Dunbar is Dylan Dunbar, very creative individual, had a strong passion for what he believed pro wrestling was. We always communicated very well from a talent to a promoter standpoint as far as what we wanted from certain situations. And he allowed me to do pro wrestling the way that I wanted to do pro wrestling. It's a little bit harder for me as a promoter to do what I wanted. I can do what I want to do in New Texas, but I don't want to be the promoter that's like, oh, I'm the champion or I'm this, I'm that. I've never been the primary focus of my promotion, because I don't believe that should ever be the case of a promoter or booker of a show. On heavy metal wrestling, I was not the promoter or booker of the show. I would just go out there and be the best talent that I could be. And I think, again, just having a creative individual as a promoter and a booker like Dylan Dunbar, and allowing me to be the best version of myself. That's where the Sheriff was born. They wanted to do some type of authority figure. I'm from West Texas, so it made a lot of sense from just, I'll just do the old cowboy trope, and I'll just go out there and, it's heavy metal wrestling. It's, it's brash. It's in your face. There's all kind, there's blood and guts and all this other stuff, and I'm here to shut it all down. That's kind of what the thing was, and it worked so well in San Antonio that I just decided that's what I enjoy doing. Like I said, I'm from West Texas. I'm a big guy. So it was just easy for me to generate heat, which I've always been really good at as this Sheriff character. And yeah, man, we had some really crazy fun times wrestling, Ruben Steele, and as close to a death match you could possibly do without glass. In front of some rabid fans in San Antonio who pretty much wanted to see me die. So again, that's probably, I'd say, heavy metal, man. I really enjoyed my time there. Again, I was a champion, beating Ruben, and yeah, a lot of the guys there, Great Scott, Aaron Mercer, Bedlam, Teflon John. He's probably going to shoot me on that. But all those guys, they're still doing good things in the business as well. So.
No, definitely. You quite literally take the questions out of my brain, because I was gonna ask you about the birth of the Sheriff, and you've stuck with that character
Yeah.
pretty much since. And in Row, you had kind of the hipster thing going on. How did these characters kind of evolve for you? Because you went from a hipster to a sheriff. Is there any other characters you had in mind for yourself that did not come to use?
Not really. I actually was in Legion many, many moons ago as well. So I did an emo gimmick when I first started in the business. And for me, I always saw people like Stone Cold, who did like the Ringmaster and all the other stuff, to where it's like, look, you get to do, sometimes you have to do the gimmicks you don't want to do to get to the gimmicks that you're going to do. You just got to kind of earn your trust along the ways. And so, Rock was Flex Cabana, all those guys, they all started with something real goofy and then kind of settled into where they were. And so I just had to figure out who I was as a character. And the hipster thing came about because I was probably at some bar and, you look across the way, you see some guy with the man bun and the glasses and reading a book in a bar or something like that. And you're like, there's just something about that guy that I just don't like, even though that person's literally never done anything to me. I don't even know the person. So then I thought, well, geez, if I'm getting all worked up about, this guy that I don't know, then how great of a wrestling character would that be? And that's kind of where that transpired to be, as far as the hipster is concerned. And again, the cowboy trope and all that other stuff. It's, again, being from West Texas, I derive a lot of my characteristics from the sheriff character from like my dad and like other people that I grew up with and stuff like that. So it's easy just to play into the things that you were like, well, that's kind of, I don't know if I can cuss on here, but whatever. I don't know if that's a shitty thing to do. That's a pretty shitty thing to do. And you just take those things that you remember and you're like, I will just incorporate that into my wrestling character. And so I enjoy, again, it goes back to enjoying challenges, right? When you have to pivot from being a hipster to being a cowboy, what does that all entail? It's a lot of work. It's a lot of challenge.
Yeah.
I wrestle a lot differently as the sheriff as I do, Star Tech or the hipster character. And like I said, I just enjoyed the challenge. And again, I've kind of settled into this is what I like to do, the sheriff character. I'm from Abilene, Texas, out there in West Texas. And yeah, man, like I said, I like to just figure out a lot of things that worked in real life and just kind of use that as my inspiration in my wrestling characters.
Yeah. I love that you saw a hipster at the bar and you're like, I'm gonna become what I hate.
I think I might have already started doing a man bun at the time. So I might,
Oh,
it might have
man.
just been, all just kind of fell into place at that point. I actually cut my man bun off on television. So that was interesting as well.
Really? Where at?
At Reality Wrestling.
Oh, man. I
As
didn't
a,
see
as a,
that.
as a babyface turn, I turned to a good guy cutting off my man bun. Because
Ultimate face
it
turn.
was such a hated, they would chant man bun sucks all the time. So they were happy to see it go.
That's really awesome. And you talked about how your wrestling style also had changed from when you were that hipster style character to Star Tech to eventually the sheriff. How would you describe your wrestling style in general?
Um, the sheriff he's a brawler. He's tough. He's a big guy. You know what I'm saying? It takes a lot to take him out. I started to incorporate a lot of my submission stuff into my character as well. All the shoot stuff's real. We're just simulating, real fights. So why not try to incorporate what I know into my wrestling style and everything like that? Sheriff's probably a lot more hardcore than any of the other old iterations of myself that I've been in, because I've been in all kinds of stuff. I've played a lot as the sheriff. He's just a tough son of a bitch that just likes to fight. That's pretty much what the sheriff is.
I like it. That's Fit Finley vibes right there. Just I want to
Yeah.
fight. Sorry, I started thinking about Fit Finley a lot. He's one of my favorites.
Really?
Yeah, I love Finley. Like SmackDown vs. Raw 2008. For some reason, that was my main guy. 78
Really?
overall, one of the worst in the game, but that was my guy.
Lately, it all.
Yeah.
This was pre Hornswoggle.
Pre Hornswoggle, and the
Yeah,
crazy
so he's
thing
just a
was,
bruiser.
yeah, I only knew him as that Finley for the longest time too. I didn't know about WCW Finley
You didn't know
until I
David
was like,
Finley at all.
no,
Okay.
because
So
I was yeah.
it's interesting because I remember him from WCW a little bit more so from the games, because you just remember a lot from as a kid from like the video games and stuff.
Yeah.
And then he just pops up on like 2008 SmackDown as like this main event, almost top mid card main event guy. I'm like, damn, Finley's awesome though. Just going back and watching his work, he's a bruiser. He's always been real physical, even if all his WCW stuff and things like that. So it's a good choice,
Yeah, thank you. I remember Fit Finley versus William Regal WCW. I don't know if it's a Nitro or something. I just remember it being one of the most like. It reminds me of watching when I watched like today, like Ryan Davidson and like Moonshine. I was like, these dudes are just beating each other up.
They knew how to be physical without putting their opponent into danger. So they could really lay in a lot of stuff and make it look, like you said, physical, right? We all enjoy more physical style, but they just knew how to do it correctly.
Yeah, it's truly an art form because that is the goal of the number one thing in wrestling, right? Keep your partner safe. And at the end of the day, it is a partner. Even if it's your opponent, it's your partner in the ring. It's your dance partner.
Yep.
Keep them safe.
Yeah, I mean, going back to what I said earlier, it's a lot of trust in the ring. So if you trust, I'm sure Finley and Regal probably went way back even before the WCW days. So like, hey, we're gonna go out there and do our thing. We'll say sorry in the back. That's kind of how that goes.
Definitely. And I kind of want to pivot things around to,
Yes.
we talked about your wrestling career a bit. And I'm so curious, how did the opportunity to be a promoter and a booker come to you?
That's a good question. So, uh, I always I'm from Abilene, and I always wanted to wrestle in my hometown. And there was a lot of times that road that we would kind of be like, oh, we're thinking about running in Abilene, but it never really came to fruition. So we got some help. It was myself, Terrell Tempo, and Max Heights got together, and we said we're all from West Texas, so we all wanted to go back home and wrestle in front of our hometowns. So we, we were at a heavy metal show. Dunbar was like, "Yeah, let's do it. You can borrow my ring or whatever." So it just kind of it just all kind of snowballed to where it was like, "Well, this is an idea that we had. This is what we want to do. We want to wrestle in front of our friends and family that we've had our entire lives. That can't drive down to Houston because it's a trek to go out to Houston from where I'm at." And yeah, we ran a show in Colorado City. The first show was in October of 2018, and it was a good show, good crowd. Then we ran in Abilene in December of 2018, which is my hometown. Another good show, another good crowd, and you just kind of saw how people in the locker room enjoyed it and wanted to be a part of it. And then after the Abilene show was when I was like, well, maybe, because I just kind of, the New Texas thing and everything, it all just kind of was like I don't know, say thrown together, but it was just kind of like, well, we need a name for a show so we can promote it, kind of thing. So again, once the Abilene show happened, it just all kind of snowballed from there. And Max and Tempo not really a part of the booking and promoting side as I am. It's not, like I said, it's not easy. And but they're both, Tempo just moved back here to Texas, and Max has been a huge part of our shows. I think he's been in almost every single show we've had except for one or two, I think. And I think I think we've run something like 30 or 40 New Texas shows. So yeah, man, it was never a thing where I was like, I'm going to be a promoter. It just all kind of happened, and then you see how much you've helped people. You continue to help people out, and you continue to provide a good program and wrestling show for everybody. So yeah, man, we've just kind of kept it up from there and just kind of continue to grow. We still have a long ways to go as far as what we want to be and everything, but we've made a lot of good strides this past couple of years to be, one of the bigger promotions here in the state now.
I was wondering where Tempo was because they have not defended those tag team championships. The Eighth Day has not gotten their rematch.
I think, well, first off, there's no automatic rematch clause in New Texas Pro Wrestling. So,
yeah, I know. Eighth Day just keeps clamoring about it.
The winner of the tournament will get an opportunity at JJ and Tempo. So, all they got to do is beat Fly Death, which,
that's not an easy task. Yeah, yeah. We recently did an 8th Day Part 2 interview.
And, oh, yeah, they Part 2.
Yeah, it's did at the Roger time of recording.
Brother Tracy get in?
Yeah.
Good.
It was chaotic. A lot of yelling.
Praise me.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw last Contender show, but my co-host Jake got chopped by Brother Tracy.
I didn't see that. I saw him. I met you guys, but
yeah,
I didn't see the chop. So probably deserving though, correct?
In my eyes, I'm on the podcast. I'm a heel sometimes, so
yeah.
Yes,
of course, yeah.
But Tracy laid in, so that was crazy. Yeah. But you become a promoter, you become a booker, almost kind of like naturally. It's not really for you. Just it just kind of happens for you, right?
Yeah.
What I'm most curious about, what is the creative process behind like being a booker, being like having to set out all these matches? Like, what is the creative thing like for you? Do you have a team with you, or is it mostly you, or what's going on?
Yeah. So at first it was a lot of me and Tempo. We would just have conversations and bounce ideas off of each other. We'd usually lay out a card, and then we kind of, go back and forth about what we think could be best for it. Over time, there's been other people that I've, talked to or spoke with about, shows and things like that. Now, as far as contenders, it's myself, it's Dan Miller, it's Sean Hendricks, and it's JJ. And we just all usually get together, during the week and kind of bounce ideas off each other and try to, come up with the best shows that we can from a creative perspective. And the most important thing about uh, creative is you want to try to set up people to be as successful as they possibly can be before they even go through the curtain. You know what I'm saying? The stuff online, anything before the match, anything like that, that can help, you know, build it a certain way or whatever the case may be. All that stuff is very important. And yeah, man, it's good to just get in there and bounce ideas off of people and hear what they've got, their ideas and stuff as well. Because I've been doing this for 5 years now, so I'm sure that I've probably been burned out a couple of times on all that stuff. But it's good to, again, kind of goes back to when when I first started at Row, right? When you surround yourself with people who are like-minded individuals and they want to be successful or they want the best, then it's easy to come up with that kind of stuff. And have fun with the creative side of things,
Definitely. I think that's like the most fun part in my head is the creative part, the storylines. As soon as you guys announced the Contender Series singles tournament, I
Yeah.
wrote out a whole storyline in my head about how it'd go down and how the finals, and it's kind of going exactly like I had Hendricks and Nick in the finals, so this is crazy. And you said Hendricks is part of the creative team.
Yes.
Is that why he's in the finals?
That's exactly. Listen. I tried to pitch to him so many times, like, "Hey, man, like, let's put, Shimbashi. Great, I love Shimbashi. Great kid." And he was like, "I'm not Hulk Hogan '97 WCW. It doesn't work for me, brother." And here we are,
That's so fun. I did not expect that from Sean Hendricks.
Yes, that's how he's like. Exactly how he is. It's maddening to almost work with every time,
That's crazy. I can't wait to see that finals. The finals is going down at Indie Showcase 3, right?
Yes, Texas Indie Showcase 3 in Pasadena.
Yes. This episode will most likely come out afterwards, but this card is stacked.
It is.
It
I'm
is.
I am super excited about this match from Brian Keith versus Rocky Romero, a freaking legend that's been around for like 20 plus years.
Yeah.
He wanted to work Brian Keith. He put on social media, "I want to work Brian Keith," and was like, "Oh, great, I got a perfect place for you to work." Giselle Shaw versus Vert Vixen is going to be absolutely bonkers. I'm really excited about that. I've even before Giselle got signed to Impact, I saw her wrestle for Rev Pro when High was out there in her last tour last year. And I was like, man, this girl is like really good. She's probably one of the best women in the entire world. That's why they put Trinity with her when Trinity first went to Impact, because Giselle's an incredible wrestler, and having her in the house is going to be special. And I mean, you could just go down the list. Sean Hendricks versus Just Nick. We've been building that tournament for months now. We got a little Casey Kareem versus the Wind Dragon on the pre-show. What do you guys? What's your thoughts on that?
Those guys. So my co-host Jake just did an interview with them yesterday, which will be releasing probably next week. But they are jerks, and I loved it. I loved it.
Are you talking about Dream Team?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, they were calling Jake Jack the whole time, and I was like, all right. Getting his name wrong on purpose.
Here's the thing. You don't always get to where you want to get to being the nice guy. You understand what I'm saying? So sometimes you got to step on some toes to get where you want to get to. And I think that's exactly what the Dream Team is doing right now.
I love it. And talking to them backstage last time, they were saying that Danny King was like, yeah, I really didn't know that KC was going to turn like that. And I was like, how do you guys just go with it like that? That's so impressive.
There was a conversation that we had pretty much before Cam went out to the curtain. And that's pretty much how that happened. So sometimes you got to call things on the fly. You understand what I'm saying? You can't when you feel something's right, you gotta do it. You understand what I'm saying? You gotta pull the trigger, and
Yeah.
that was one of those instances where I felt like it was the right move. And you have a small conversation before you go out, or before they went out to help Dustin, and that's kind of how it went.
It really was the right move. I was in attendance at that show, and I literally jumped out of my seat because I was like, "No way! There's no way this is happening." And Danny like froze. He didn't know what to do. uh, that was freaking awesome, and I totally get it about you don't have to be you can't be the nice guy sometimes because
Yeah.
growing up, even since I was a little kid, I always wanted to be a heel in wrestling. Like all my video game characters were heels. All like in my mind is like, how would I get heat? Like
Yeah.
all I think about, how would I generate heat? And it was like I'd flick off babies, I'd do anything, just to get heat.
You know what? I've done some despicable things myself. So,
What would you say is the most despicable heel thing you've ever done?
ooh, I mean, I don't know how people say they could start a riot. I burned a championship belt in a
That's
burn
really wild.
in
That's really
a
crazy.
in a canister outside of Premiere, and it literally, as soon as I beat Sam Stackhouse, caused a riot in the Premier Arena to where people were throwing. It was insane. You you don't know for sure that something like that would happen. You felt the energy in the room that night. You knew that the crowd would have gotten in the ring and tried to kill me if they could have, like legitimately. And from burning the belt and everything, all the smack I talked online leading up to the show. And well, I guess I retained the belt. I didn't. I actually won it before that, but you just could feel the energy. And as soon as they started throwing things, I guess it was the referee that was next to me that told me afterwards that I was like, oh, here we go. And yeah, there's beer bottles and chairs and all kinds of stuff being thrown in the ring. And you just were like, all right, it's fun for a bit. I was yelling at the crowd for a second. Then I was like, no, I got to get out of here before they try to jump in the ring and kill me. I think that was almost to that point. And you just have to understand your audience. You have to understand what buttons you can press and what really makes people upset. Sometimes I've never really been the biggest fan of being a snarky heel. I like to be the heel that there's nobody wants to cheer for. It kind of just evolved to people being like, I love to hate you kind of thing, which is fine. But yeah, you just have to understand your audience. You have to understand what they would dislike you doing, and you just go out there and you do everything that they hate.
That is ultimate heel though. Like you've if you're a heel, your job is to get boos.
Yes.
You've done your job to the utmost ability.
Yeah.
If you're fearful of your life.
Yes. I was definitely fearful of my life that night. I did not know if I was going to get out of there without being stabbed or something hit my head and knock me out or something.
That is insane.
I feel like that's something you talk to someone about in the 90s. Like, oh, I left Puerto Rico, getting batteries thrown at me, and I was like, no, it happened in 2022. I was there, and it was insane.
I wanted to ask this question. It's been lingering on my mind since I went to Summer of Champions on Saturday. I'm really big fans of a lot of the heels, and I think the best way to support a heel is to boo the crap out of them and talk to them because that is their job, right?
Yes.
And get them like kind of more and more heat from the crowd.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that, or would you say like, oh, if like for example, when the 8th day came out, I didn't know if I should cheer or should boo because I'm fans of them,
Yeah.
but like gotta boo them.
Yeah. I mean, I would tell my family to boo, but I think there's a little bit of, if there's some people in the crowd who want to cheer for you, and you're doing your job correctly as a heel, there's going to be even more people that are going to want to drown those people out and boo you even louder. So I enjoy the noise either way. I think as long as people are reacting and wanting to make some type of noise for you, whether good or bad, you're kind of doing your job. If I do my job correctly, I'm not saying that everyone's going to boo me because I definitely always had people that enjoyed what I was doing. But for the most part, the 70, 80% of the crowd that hates me is going to drown out the 10 to 20%, 30% that doesn't like me. So, or that does cheer for me.
That's very true. At Summer of Champions, I'm a huge Promise Braxton fan, and she was telling me my mama sucked. She was telling me like, I was like, I'm trying to help you, I'm booing you, like I'm getting you heat. Yeah, that was fun. But I had something in mind. I want to know, how did Texas Contender Series even pop up? Like how'd you make this?
So it kind of was on my like I've been thinking about it for a couple of years. There was a when I worked for Heavy Metal Wrestling, we used to do shows on Wednesdays um, in San Antonio, and there was some good elements of that show. We called it Heavy Metal Thunder. They debuted on Twitch the next week or whatever. There was good, like I said, good elements of the show. It gave an opportunity for guys to go out and wrestle, who who really hadn't found themselves as an entertainer or as a wrestler at that point. It's really, really hard when you first start out to get into places and start to wrestle. It's like you got your home promotion and maybe one or two other ones that you might get to wrestle for, but it's really, really hard to just get out and finally start wrestling other places. And so for me, when I first started wrestling, I'd say one of the biggest detriments that I had while being at reality wrestling was the fact that I've maybe wrestled once a month for the first 2 or 3 years that I was in wrestling. And it's just so vital for you to get out and just start wrestling as much as humanly possible when you get to a certain point and you're able to wrestle matches and protect yourself in the ring. And so, all of this stuff kind of combined itself. And I was like, well, what if we do the show? We're getting a lot of the hungry kids that are from around the state. We have people from, we either have Culture Shock from Austin, Shimbashi from College Station, Zane Valero from College Station. God, I mean, there's been, I think we've had over 150, 160 people on that show at some point in time. So pretty much every camp, DFW All Pro, MPX, AAPW in Austin, you just go down Laredo, McAllen. I mean, pretty much from every city in the entire state that has some type of wrestling, we've had people there. So it gives guys, a lot of times it was their first time wrestling outside their own promotion. It's a Thursday night. Most guys are training on Thursday night. So it kind of shift. I'm doing a training night to I'm doing a live round. I always call them live round in front of people on a live stream on IWTV. So I thought it would be a good opportunity for a lot of young people to get an opportunity to wrestle, to get around people who can give them legitimate critiques like myself or Bulldog or JJ. And ultimately, all was a rising tides lifts all ships. So you hope that this has a positive effect not only here in Houston but around the state. The guys, like, for instance, I saw Pac Ortega was a guy that was in San Antonio. He trains a dog pound under Rodney Mack and Jazz, and he just didn't have a lot of confidence. So he came to Contenders. I think he's wrestled Contenders 6-7 times at this point, and was really able to find himself as a heel character on our show. And I think he even mentioned it on Facebook a couple months back about how it gave him confidence in the ring, and that now feels like he's a different wrestler. I think he won the Loko Championship, Loko Fire Championship at the last Loko show or whatever the case may be. So cases like that, to where it's like Pac Ortega is not necessarily in our camp. He's somebody I really enjoy working with. I think he's a very talented individual. I enjoy to see his growth. I remember him when he first started out. I remember the reputation that he might have carried with himself at certain points, because sometimes you get out there too early and you're not ready for what not ready for the matches, not ready for certain things. And then people have a preconceived notion of what they believe that you are. I don't think that Pac Ortega ever was that person, but I could see how people might feel that way. And now he's continuously proving people wrong, that he's out of BIW and he's showcasing what he truly is. And as a performer, that's the kind of stuff that I wanted to try to do for the Texas Contender Series. And again, we get to work with a lot of our kids, Dustin, Casey, I'm going to call people by their real names, Ode, Timor, people like Charity King, Amaris, you could just go down the list of guys on the show, El Valdivia, Kenny Calypso, guys who are in our camp as well that are just growing and getting better. Hellhound Walker is another one that's got, just Jesus, in the year that we've been running, he's a completely different wrestler, and his confidence has been, I see a lot more in him, but he's a lot better than where he was. So you get to see all the successful. If I go back and watch the Contender Series 1, I'm sure that I will see different wrestlers that are with the same name on those shows as I do now. It's like I said, that was really my ultimate goal. I want to give people an opportunity to wrestle in their primitive years, as a performer, and give them an opportunity to build their confidence and to get in the ring with people who are better than them, get in the ring with people they've never met or wrestled before, and again get real quality feedback, real quality content that they could post online. I mean, there's, like I said, a lot of good things that I really want to do with Contenders, and so far it's been pretty good. I'd say it's been probably one of my favorite things that I probably say. I go back and forth with new Texas and Contenders a lot, but I really enjoyed the aspect of working with the new kids at the Texas Contender Series, and to see how hungry they are and how much they want to be successful. It's really rejuvenating to you when you've been around the business for so long. We all kind of get jaded in certain aspects of the business, but being around the kids who really honestly just want to be the best versions of themselves every night out, that's really cool. It's humbling to be a part of something like that when you can help people in that capacity.
Those Contender Series shows have been awesome to go to. Like, really fun from a fan's perspective, because last show, Texas Contender Series, I 21. I brought a friend who's never been to a wrestling show, and he never heard of Contender Series as well. He just watches like the main product.
Yeah.
And he left, and he tried to go to every wrestler to see if they're selling a T-shirt, because he's a fan of everyone. By the end of the night, he left with the 8th Day shirt. Yeah,
Praise
yeah, it was
be.
awesome. Praise be.
No, that means a lot, because again, we're not necessarily working with the top guys on those shows. You know what I'm saying? That they're the kids that are grinding at the start of their careers, and I know that we're all kind of grinding at the same level here, but they're at a different stage of their careers. They're very happy. They want to try to be part of something very successful, and they're all doing their part, and everybody brings something to that show from top to bottom. And I couldn't be more proud of everybody that goes out and does Contenders every week, or every other week, I should say.
And I made an observation when going to Contender Series, and you can tell me what you think about it, is I've noticed that the character work seems to be a lot heavier than other indie promotions at Contender Series, and that I get to see more characters, more stories, and that's what I really love about going to Contender Series, is that I get all these groups and factions and a lot more personality in the wrestling. Would you say that's true?
Yes, and the reason that is true is because a lot of times when you book independent wrestling shows, you don't have the same people in the area, like in the same area, who are on those shows, right? Rocky Romero's in Mexico right now. He's going to fly in from Mexico City and then fly back the next day. Giselle's in Australia, I think. Vert's in Austin. And you go down the list of guys who are on the new Texas shows, and they're all over the place, right? So you only really get a chance to work on them with the characters and stories when they're in the building, which is usually only once a month. As opposed to Contenders, a lot of the people on the show, I think I counted 12 or 13 of the 20 people that were on the last show, are guys that we work with on a weekly basis. So when you have the majority of the guys who are on the show in-house, you really get an opportunity to build storylines, build characters, add depth to people, add depth to the groups and things like that. You don't want everyone to feel the same. And that we've really tried to work hard this last, I'd say, 5 or 6 months on trying to build character for everybody that is there. That's kind of, again, you have great trainers like JJ and Bulldog who are there every day, teaching them the fundamentals and the essentials of the in-ring stuff. And then when we get to the Contenders, I'm working with them on again, marketing, but building their character and trying to build the stories and telling them why they need to do things a certain way, because it's going to be better this way as opposed to if you do it this way. You understand? So we do get an opportunity to tell a lot more stories on the Contenders, because I get to be around most of the same people every single show. So you really get an opportunity to map out a lot of cool stuff that you get to see on a week-to-week basis kind of play out. And we're kind of only getting started with all that stuff as well. We really got a long ways we can go, because it's I'd say the maybe last 6 to 8 months of Contenders really when we started to find our groove as far as what it works with all the talent coming in on a whoever we get coming in the next time, whatever. So now that we've kind of found that groove, we've really been able to start cook with what we got.
Is it kind of planning on a weekly basis based off whatever happened this show? Who can we get in, or is it more planned out in advance?
No, I usually put on Facebook, we have these dates for Contenders, who can be a part of it. and we'll take the people that want to be a part of it, that we know will provide to the shows. We've kind of gone through a litany of guys, and we kind of know who works in what situations, and so I understand a lot of the guys' strengths and weaknesses. So again, I try to put them in situations where they'll be successful, and we just try to build the best show we can with the guys that are coming in, from different parts. I think last time we had four guys from Florida. I think it was Lemma, Better Together, and Blake Banks.
This is my first time seeing Better Together. They were really cool.
Oh, very entertaining.
Super
awesome. I enjoyed the match with Charity and Danny. And again, you just kind of figure out what the people you're bringing in are and how they can be added to the show that can add quality to the show as well. So I think that's a little bit of the secret sauce for Contenders, because not a lot of people are good at just booking people in general, but to kind of figure out what people are if you've never met them in real life, and try to put them in a good situation where they can be successful and that they can be a part of the show that helps benefit the show. That's no easy task, I'll tell you that.
What would you say, in your opinion, has been the best match you've seen on Contenders?
I mean, you could like Hion versus Mew was insane. There was a 6-man with some people from Dragon Gate that was awesome. Trying to think of just like a Contenders match that was like, wow, that was a lot of fun. There was a match not too far back between JJ Blake and Brother Tracy that I thought was really good.
Brother Tracy put on great matches.
Yeah, and him and Lemo was really good this last time too.
Match of the night, in my opinion.
It's pretty remarkable how good he's gotten at such a young age, especially over this last year or so that we've been able to work with him. Yeah, and I enjoyed Blake Banks and Isaac Morales. I think Isaac is really starting to find his groove as a wrestler. He was one of those people that was down at Row forever as a referee. The Contenders was really, I was like, hey, we're doing this Contender things. I know you're a referee, but do you want to start wrestling? And maybe we can put you on the Contender series to get some reps and stuff like that. And that was really the start, the jump of him becoming a wrestler, was the Contenders. And he's only really been wrestling full time for almost about a year now. So from what I've heard, he did really well on the ladder match. And the people were very excited for him. So I couldn't be happier for Isaac. And to see the last few matches that Isaac had, the one with Pac Ortega, the one with Blake Banks, and I feel like there was one more that he did recently that was just really awesome.
The triple threat.
Was that
ETC? The triple threat with ETC and
the triple threat was really good.
Houston. Yeah.
Those, like I said, to see him wrestle now as opposed to what he was, I don't know, a year ago when he wasn't really wrestling full time. That it's remarkable. That's the growth in that amount of time is just insane.
Definitely. The whole Summer of Champions crowd was going wild for Isaac. I felt like I was the only guy in the crowd going for Emilio Tovar. And I was like, come on, guys. They're like, nah, It's Isaac's time. But, Rudy Garza is Rudy Garza. He does what he does.
That's right.
And speaking of Rudy Garza, Indie Showcase, the match I am most hyped for is that 5-on-5 eliminator tag match. What a great stipulation, too, that whoever are the survivors kind of get an opportunity of their choice. How did that kind of come to play? Like, who came up with that?
This is a me thing. There was I don't know if you remember this, there was a Survivor Series match in, I say 2003. It was a Team Bischoff versus Team Stone Cold, Team Austin. And pretty much the winner of the winner, that variation of it, the winning team got something on Monday Night Raw the next night. So Bischoff team won, and they did a whole bunch of fun stuff on the show on Monday Night Raw the next night. I always thought that was a really cool concept, to where it's like, if the winning team or the winning survivors of the team can get something of their choice, and it doesn't have to necessarily be a title shot, but it could be something, anything that they choose. It kind of leaves the door open for a lot of different stuff. And I always thought it was a cool concept. We kind of did it last year when we did Team New Texas versus Team Loko at the Indie Showcase 2, where Max got a shot at the title, Blake got a shot at the Lone Star title, and Q got an opportunity to face world-class talent. So it kind of, like I said, it opens up the doors for a lot of fun stuff, and I just always enjoy the concept. And I think I don't want to always be the guy who's just copying everything from everybody. I'm trying to be. There's a few things of mine that we've done in New Texas that is, as far as I know, have not been done anywhere else, and have kind of been my own creations. So I always try to stay on the let's try new things. Let's try to figure out new match stipulations, or let's try to do this and make it this way. And because I don't want to be the copy and paste guy. I want to be the guy that's actively coming up with more and more cool stuff for wrestling.
Something I've noticed in New Texas is y'all put on great ladder matches. Every time you
Yes.
do a ladder match, it's awesome.
Yeah. I don't know why it's always just ended up being that way. The ladder matches have always just been a highlight. And when you go out there and the crowd is super hot and you got a good story, or you've got multi-man ladder matches and they just come out to be insane. I'm always the type of guy that, like, hey, you guys go out there and be safe. I don't want you guys to get hurt. That's like my most important thing. So sometimes when guys do some crazy stuff, I'm like, I from a fan's perspective, I get it. The matches have been insane, but from a promoter and just being friends with most of the guys and knowing them on a personal level, I'm like, just please be safe. That's all I'm asking.
Definitely. And I've been saying this since I've gotten into indie wrestling, and I genuinely believe it, that the Lone Star Championship is the best looking title in Texas right now.
Yes.
It's such a great design. Who designed the belts for you?
Well, that one. So I had the Lone Star title had a concept for it. It was going to be a 5-star belt. I don't know if you've ever seen the old Lone Star Championship. It's literally a silver star. It's just it's got silver plates, and it's got a silver star in the middle. The problem with that is that it could stab somebody with the pointy star things. So it was a cool looking concept. It didn't come out the way that I expected it to come out, but it was dangerous to whoever was holding the title because you could get stabbed pretty much. So Max Heights and Enrique Gilmore, they were the ones that came up with the new concept for the new Lone Star Championship. You have the silver star that's still in the middle of it, to kind of give it a little commemorative to the old silver star belts. But that is their design. That is Enrique Gilmore and a Max Heights design. And they're the ones who came up with that specific belt, and it looks good. It's a great looking belt. I wish it was on anybody else but Rudy, but here we are.
As a fan, please never change that belt.
I think that's definitely one. We've got a couple of others, like the women's title. We're going to change her in a bit, but that's definitely one that's unique to ours to keep forever.
Yeah. I thought the one looked pretty good too, so I'm excited to see what you guys have next.
Yes, I'm nice.
Yeah, this has been pretty awesome, and I actually want to end this off on some rapid fire question. I'm just gonna throw some questions at you, and give me some responses. Okay.
Okay.
Let's get it. What is the best match of your career?
I guess it'd have to be me and JJ Blake in Abilene. That's my answer.
Understandable. Who is the hardest hitting opponent you've had?
Max Castellanos.
Yeah. I asked him when we were on the show. I was like, "Why do you hit so hard?"
Yeah.
And he was just like, "I don't know. It just happens." But yeah, he's such a hard hitter.
Don't let him lie to you. He enjoys beating people up. Don't let him lie to you.
I see how much he enjoys it. Who's the biggest influence of your career in your personal life and also wrestling wise?
I would say my oldest brother, Judd. He was the one that got me into wrestling. I'd say we still talk about, God, I don't know how many times we've talked about LA Knight over the last few months, but he that's what he likes, and I'm all there with him. So he's definitely been the biggest influence as far as me getting into wrestling and everything like that. He was the one that showed me all the video games and all the Saturday morning superstars or whatever WWF used to do. So.
And your favorite wrestler coming up?
I was a Rock guy. I like The Rock. And I liked the Dudley Boys were my tag team back when, I guess tag teams are back now, but those my singles and my tag guys.
When you started watching the Dudleys, was it in ECW?
No, it actually was. I actually was watching it with my brother when they debuted on SmackDown, I think, or Raw. I don't remember exactly which one it was. And he was like, "What are the Dudley Boys doing here?" And I'm like, "I don't know who the Dudley Boys are because I'm 6 years old or whatever, it was 7." So no, yeah, I went back and watched some of their stuff with in ECW, but no, it was definitely the old WWE days. Attitude Era was my bread and butter.
Yeah, they were awesome though. I remember always wanting to wear red camo pants, and my parents were like, "We're not gonna buy you red camo pants."
I'll wear it everywhere, I promise.
Yeah, like I promise, like I'll wear it every day. They're like, "That's disgusting." Um, who is someone you would still like to wrestle in the Texas indie community that you haven't been able to chop it up with? We know you've wrestled everywhere.
I feel like I just wrestle so many people. I don't even remember who I did or didn't wrestle. I don't think I've ever been in the ring with Izzy James. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I've done a tag stuff with Barrett Brown. That was pretty cool, but I think a singles would be fun. There's some of the kids I haven't wrestled, but I think that'll happen in time. Geez, there's so many people. Yeah, I mean, those come to my mind. I don't. There's. I said I'll wrestle anybody. I don't care.
Can can you beat up Rudy Garza
Yeah,
for
I
us,
think
for the community?
you know.
Yeah, take that title off and book yourself to it.
Sure. I think you know what. If there's one person for me to beat and put the title on myself, I think it is Rudy Garza. I think the crowd would still love that.
Yeah, interrupt that 5-man tag, that 5-on-5.
I'll get my own opportunity.
You're like Shawn Hendricks going Hogan now. I still can't believe that. But who's the
Yeah,
most underrated wrestler in New Texas or Texas Contender Series?
underrated. I'm pretty high on JJ Blake. He's definitely underrated. But the Contender Series. They're all kind of just all starting out, so I don't know where they're rated at specifically. I like what Charity's been doing.
Maybe
I
someone
think.
who other people should pay attention to more.
Okay, well, I think Danny B has been doing a lot of great things. She's just won the Sabotage Championship. That's a pretty big belt as far as the Texas indie scene is concerned. She's just really figuring out herself as a wrestler at this point in time. She's been around the scene for a little while, but now she's really starting to hit her groove, and she's really figuring out who she is as a performer. And I think it's starting to show in her own work. And I really like what she's doing. I think she's going to have a great 2023-2024 run. I worked him in MPX not too long ago. Tommy Becker, he's a tremendous worker, great hand, and we had a great match. We've always had great matches, whether it's tag or singles. So he's another guy that I got to shout out. They like to say he's the best in Texas, and I think I put him in the conversation.
That's actually my next question. Who's the best wrestler in Texas?
Yeah, you got to go with Brian Keith, man. You have to go with the guy who's crushing it everywhere.
I tell this to everyone. I feel like every promotion I look at, he's champion.
Yeah.
How many belts can he hold?
Probably all of them if he wanted to. No, he's just everywhere he's gone, he's killed it, man. I don't really know. It's hard to explain to people to see how far he's grown since I've known him when I first met him about 9-10 years ago. But he goes everywhere almost like he has a point to prove, like with a chip on his shoulder, and he shows why he belongs. And then once he shows why he belongs, then he shows why he should be a champion and why he deserves everything that he's gotten in this business and everything that he'll get.
Definitely, I feel like he's always ready to be up there, be in the light. He's
Yeah.
next. Also, another guy I always say that Mysterious Q is another guy I always think is one of the best.
Yeah, Q's awesome, man.
He really is. He's so funny too. Underrated, funny guy.
He is.
Who would you say has the best character in New Texas or Texas Contender Series?
Character work, I'd say a Contender Series. It's got to be Father O'Day, right? I mean, the guy has just been crushing it as far as the 8th day is concerned. That pretty much he had the idea for it, and we've just kind of given him a opportunity to showcase what he believes the 8th day to be, and I think that he's fucking hit a home run with it. He's like, give it another year or two, and the 8th day is probably gonna be everywhere on the Indies in Texas. I'm willing to bet.
I would not be surprised. Yeah.
On the independents and New Texas, I mean, I love Brian Keith's stuff with the poncho and the hat and the music. Rachel Rose does great character work. I'm always like, I always do these lists, or I'll say favorites and I'll forget people, but those are the people that come to my mind. So,
no, those are great choices. Who is a wrestler across Texas who you'd love to wrestle for you? Who has it for one of your promotions?
I think everybody's pretty much wrestled in New Texas or Contender Series at some point. Nobody really comes to mind. I know. I hope anybody that watches this or whatever feels bad. I'm trying to think of anybody that I hasn't. Well, probably more so start bringing people back.
Anyone from outside of Texas that you'd love to see on the independent scene that people don't really know about?
It's a good question. There's a lot of people out there, man. There's a lot of people out there. I really like Cole Radrick's stuff. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's it's weird for me. Like, who do I know that you might not know, or most people don't know? But because I feel like a lot of people that we were booking, or that we wanted to bring back, have kind of gotten signed places and things like that. So they're probably a little bit more well known now. I'd love to bring like Cole Radrick back. We're probably gonna bring Billy Starks back. I mean, she's signed with AEW now, so she should be coming back in October. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of people that I want to try to bring back that have gotten places that like signed with AEW and stuff, that we have plans to bring back at some point in time, that really don't get to wrestle in Texas a lot. So
okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. And what is the best match you've seen in general? It could be WWE, could be AEW, could be on the indie scene. What's the best match you've ever seen?
Okay, so indie scene, I specifically remember. I think I'm gonna, the New Texas Pro shows, a couple of the Texas Super Fights between Mysterious Q and BK. Those are probably my favorite matches of all time as far as on the indies concerned. Before I started booking, there was a match between ACH and Gino Medina at a Branded Outlaw show in San Antonio, Texas, that was absolutely tremendous. That always sticks out in my head. From a fan's perspective, before I got into business, Undertaker versus HBK 1 from WrestleMania 25 was my all-time. And then as I've been in the business, really liked Omega and Okada, the one that got the 6 stars or whatever. Was just tremendous storytelling from beginning to end, and it felt grueling, but it also didn't feel like it went like an hour or however long it went, 40, 50 minutes, whatever it was. So that's a good sign that I was invested the whole time, So those are the matches that come to my mind, that from the indies and from the big promotions, that I would say is favorites of all time. Some of my favorites.
No, that's awesome. And the last rapid question, not so rapid fire actually, but
yeah, right. I'm just blab on about everything.
No, I've also asked a lot of questions. This ain't rapid. But where does Kiefer Bartek see himself in 5 years?
I think that just going to continue to build with New Texas Pro, continue to build with the Contender Series. And we're really looking to get back on the road. A lot of Abilene. We haven't been to Abilene in a few years. Colorado City we've run before. There's some opportunity in San Antonio that we're looking into. We want to try to take Contenders in New Texas on the road and become a true traveling wrestling company. Making true loops in the territories. So that all building towards that. Getting trucks, getting more production stuff, all that stuff that entails. Continuously growing our school. We don't always want to be at Premier. We have, yeah, we have. We've been
That
exploring
parking.
we've been exploring avenues to get out of there for a while. We just got to figure out what's best for everybody from a business perspective. But getting out to a new facility somewhere in the Houston area and continuing to grow what we've been growing on. I think when I started here a year ago to help with Premiere and everything, I think we had like 8 students, and now I think we have over 30 in a year's time. So you want to try to continue to grow on that and try to build on that. And, it's just, that's where I see myself. I just see myself trying to help get these guys where they want to get to, I get them to an opportunity to get to their dreams. It doesn't matter if it's, the great thing I love about what we do at Premiere and everything is that it doesn't matter if you're like the 5-star athlete that comes in that looks like $1 million, or if you're, a guy who's got 2 left feet or whatever. We're going to try to give you all the same amount of attention to be successful. And I think that's what sets us apart from most other places that have their favorites that they really concentrate on, and everyone else kind of gets swept to the side as free labor or whatever. We really try to give everybody an equal opportunity to become what they want to become. And it's ultimately on that person to become what they want to become. But if you constantly push them and tell them what they need to be doing, then they're really receptive to that. That's the one thing that I wish I had early in my career, is somebody who was honest with me and gave me real critiques and feedbacks and help guide me in the same way that I helped guide a lot of people and continue to help guide people.
Wow, that's sign me up. Sign me up. Kiefer, thank you so much for doing this. This was genuinely so much fun. It's such a pleasure to talk with you and pick your brain for a bit. If you can tell anything to the audience right now, the floor is yours.
Man, I think we've discussed a lot. I just appreciate everyone's time if you listen to this. And, I'm going to work on Hendrix to see if we can get him to, to
Lose.
work with us. Yeah, exactly. Just try to get it into his wrestling, contract to, do the right thing on Saturday. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you again, Kiefer Bartek, for joining us on in this edition of Ringside Chats. It's been a blast, and as always, for the fans listening at home, stay restless.